Hey everyone, welcome to Eye On Foxborough's podcast. I'm Karen Guregian. I'm here with Mark Daniels and Chris Mason. And today we're all pleased to welcome ESPN senior draft analyst Mel Kiper Jr. Hi, Mel.
Karen, great to be with you guys. Chris, Mark, it's going to be fun. It's going to be a fun draft. I think the most fascinating draft in NFL history for me, and I've been doing this for 46 years. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens at the top of this draft board.
Yeah, obviously, there's a lot of interest in New England with the Patriots having the number 3 pick and being up top the board for the first time in forever. Your latest mock is out. You have them taking Drake Maye. You had them, I believe, taking Drake Maye in your second mock. But you're a little hesitant this time around. Can you talk us through that?
Yeah, it's interesting because they have options. You have two quarterbacks taken ahead of New England, which is going to be Caleb Williams to Chicago, and then Jayden Daniels to Washington. More than likely, although some disagree with that. That maybe it could be Drake Maye at 2. Who knows? Everybody's got different mocks out, and everybody's got different people they're talking to, and nobody's going to tell you exactly what they're doing. So all that nonsense about everybody knows, no, they don't. There's no team telling you exactly what they're doing. So I think when you look at New England, a lot of it may depend on what happens at 2. We think Caleb's going 1, but what does Washington do at 2? I think it's Jayden Daniels. So it goes that way, then it's Drake Maye or J.J. McCarthy. Now, do you like one of the two? Do you like neither one of the two? So if you don't, and you don't have a strong conviction about one of those two, then you got to move out of that pick. And there will be a lot of teams looking to move up to get that quarterback. There's talk that Minnesota likes Drake Maye. There's talk that teams want to move up to maybe get J.J. McCarthy. Maybe Denver, Minnesota. Denver doesn't have a second-round pick that prevents that from happening. But Minnesota now with 11 and 23, you would think has a dance partner ready to go, right? Because they wouldn't have made that move had they not been able to get up to in that spot to get the quarterback they deem the guy they want. So it's going to be interesting to see whether that trade takes place, whether New England says, hey, we got a guy we love, and it is a Drake Maye or a J.J. McCarthy, and they take him. If it's not, they trade out. And then who is their quarterback ultimately going to be? Because you're in a division with Josh Allen, Tua, and Aaron Rodgers, and an AFC with Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow and all the other great ones. You got to get a quarterback. I've always said, Karen and guys and Chris and Mark, you can't be the worst team in the division at quarterback. You just can't be. Then you got to have everybody else have issues. Like even in Pittsburgh, they didn't have the right quarterback, but they had Burrow hurt and Watson hurt. So they were able to sneak in and win some games they really shouldn't have won. That's why Pittsburgh did what they did. Now has Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. So in New England, Mac Jones got no help. And that's a story for another day, but they hung him out to dry. And we'll get to that probably during this talk today. But at the end of the day, they have Josh, and then you have Tua and Aaron, and you're fourth. So how are you going to close that gap? This draft will tell us a lot about that.
Do you consider whether it's Jayden Daniels or Drake Maye a franchise type quarterback who could ultimately be in that discussion to perhaps move the Patriots up in the pecking order of quarterbacks?
I'll just admit, Karen and Marcus, nobody knows who these quarterbacks are and what they're going to be. You're just, it is a guessing game. And history tells us it's a guessing game. I go back and I got this from Johnny Unitas to Dan Marino to Joe Montana to Dan Fouts to all the Drew Brees, all the quarterbacks in between. Patrick Mahomes, Mitch Trubisky went second. Patrick Mahomes and Deshaun Watson dropped. You saw what happened to Lamar. Josh Rosen went at 10. Lamar Jackson went at the end of the first round. Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold went ahead of Josh Allen. So I think we know, but we really don't know about these quarterbacks. And you want to have strong conviction, but sometimes your strong conviction's wrong. But you got to believe in that guy. You just can't get because somebody's pushed up there and everybody's talking about that. You got to believe as an organization he's the right guy, or else you're going to end up overdrafting or end up with right now of the last 7 years, 23 quarterbacks in the first round, 14 are starting. 7 are backups, 2 are out of the league. So again, you look at where we are right now, it's hard to really predict that and say franchise. Zach Wilson was supposed to be a franchise quarterback. Where's Zach right now? Trey Lance was supposed to be franchise. Mac Jones was drafted 15th not that long ago and had a really good rookie year. Where's he at now? He's not with the New England Patriots. So at the end of the day, yes, these quarterbacks will be expected to be franchise quarterbacks. Will they all become like the draft with Eli Manning and Phillip Rivers and Ben Roethlisberger, or the draft with Tua, Herbert, and Burrow all turn out to be really good? It's rare when that happens, but some years it does work out where the three quarterbacks that went all turn out to be really good or great. But most years it doesn't. So they're all expected to be franchise guys, but I think you can bet that one or maybe two of these guys will not be.
Mark, do you have something for Mel?
Yeah, a lot of the talk after the Vikings made that trade was, should the Patriots work a deal where they acquire 11, 23, and a future pick, whether it be another first? Hypothetically, if the Patriots were to drop to 11, who would be a realistic target that could fill a need, whether it's left tackle or wide receiver?
Yeah, I think at the left tackle spot, Olu Fashanu from Penn State would be in the mix. J.C. Latham, who played right tackle, but athletically can go to left tackle, would be a possibility at that point. So I think from the offensive line standpoint, there was, what was the other position, Mark, you mentioned?
Wide receiver, they probably need an X.
Yeah, I would say right now, the top three are going to be long gone. So you know about Marvin Harrison Jr., you're talking about Rome Odunze and Malik Neighbors. Then you get into variety of guys who have played slot and outside. And of course, Brian Thomas is the big-bodied outside threat, down the field threat, tracks the deep ball, 17-yard average per catch, 17 touchdowns. Xavier Worthy can be slot or outside, 165 pounds, but ran 4.21, had a great year coming back from that broken hand late in 2022. And there's a lot of other receivers. Malachi Corley's great after the catch. He's a second rounder. Ricky Pearsall, Florida, moving up. Lad McConkey. We can get into a lot of it. Keon Coleman, I think, is one of the toughest players to evaluate because he's a heck of a player, but he ran 4.61. You saw him at the gauntlet do great. Puka Nacua ran 4.57. Great gauntlet. Became a great receiver. So maybe Keon Coleman benefits from that. So there's going to be some receivers, I think, in the mix. But if you get down to quarterback and you say, what quarterback could be there if you drop down to 11, you'd be getting into the mix at that point with the elite guys gone, the so-called elite guys gone, right? Then you get into, is J.J. McCarthy going to be there? Probably not, because I don't project trades in the mock, but he may go a little earlier. If he's there at 11, he'd be in the discussion. And then you get into Bo Nix from Oregon or Michael Penix Jr. from Washington. Both Bo Nix and Michael Penix Jr. will be there. I had Nix going to Denver. I had Penix in the early second. Could be a trade into the late first. Reason why he drops a little bit, the four injuries, the injuries at Indiana, shoulder and knee, and of course the struggles in that national title game. But, Bo Nix I gave to Denver because I saw comparisons in my own mind when I'm watching him to Drew Brees. And I think Sean Payton may see that. So I went with a hunch there, gave Bo Nix to Denver at 12. But those would be the two quarterbacks, Nix and Penix Jr., and maybe McCarthy. Because nobody expected Ben Roethlisberger to be there at 11 when Eli went up there at the top and Phillip Rivers went up there at the top. And he dropped, I think, at 11 to Pittsburgh. They didn't have to trade up to get him. He fell in their lap. Nobody thought it would happen. And look what happened there. A couple of Super Bowl wins and a great quarterback. So you never know about JJ. Giants are in the mix. Teams trading up are in the mix, but maybe he's there at 11. Who knows? But he would be in the discussion, obviously, at 11 if he were on the board. And like I said, then we get into whether how you regard Bo Nix or Michael Penix Jr.
Chris?
Yeah, I wanted to ask you a little bit more about JJ and just kind of what's fueled his rise up these draft boards, where it feels like at the beginning of the process, it was pretty clearly Caleb first tier, the second tier was Maye and Daniels, and then he was in the third tier. Seems like he's definitely separated himself from those third tier quarterbacks to the point where he's like nipping at Maye's heels now. So what has led to that rise?
Chris, that's a great question. I've said all along, he's the toughest player to evaluate because you kept waiting for that game where you would say, wow, he's the guy. It was never really that game. Because he had the running backs, he had the offensive line, he had the defense, he had every piece around him that was able to allow Michigan to win a national title. But when he needed to make plays in that national title game, he did. So I think he's a tough one to evaluate. He's 219 pounds. He's athletic. He can make all the throws. Even though he doesn't have the big-time arm, he can make all the throws. He can beat you with his legs, as he showed against Washington in the national title game. Key play in that game when they were deep in their own territory. He got him the first down. Flipped field position was a big play in that football game. He's a great leader. He's tough. He's got Josh Allen type competitiveness. He's really smart. Jim Harbaugh, as you guys have known, has been raving about it. He's the best player in the draft. He's the best quarterback. That doesn't hurt. And JJ played well. JJ you couldn't critique what he did. You could say, well, he threw some costly interceptions in his career, but he didn't throw many. I've always said their interceptions were few, but the few were memorable. The 2 pick sixes in the semifinal game 2 years ago against TCU, the 3 against Bowling Green this past year. The one against Maryland right before the half that got Maryland back in the game, prevented Michigan from extending that lead, gave them momentum. Maryland made that a tight game the rest of the way. That was a key interception, but he didn't throw many. And he's been accurate. Even in the national title game, he put balls on the money. A couple of them were dropped. So again, competitive. He just turned 21. He was 20 years old throughout the year. He just turned 21. So he's young. He's got 2 full years of experience, been coached in an NFL system. So, but he got a lot of help. So that's why he is a tough evaluation. You're taking a leap of faith based on the winning, the toughness, the smarts, the leadership, and the fact that he's managed games. He's been a great game manager for the most part. But what bothers you is, can he be the guy when the pressure's on to say in the NFL, you got to be the guy. And all of a sudden, it's going to be you as the spotlight player week in and week out. How will he deal with that? When at Michigan, it was the running game. They had 9 deep on the O-line. The defense was strong. Everything was in place. The quarterback just had to just manage the game. And he did it. You can't knock him for that. He did it phenomenal. They won a national title. They could have maybe done it the year before, but there were a couple pick sixes in that game. And they had a bad call at the goal line on a catch and fumble. But overall, there's a lot to like about JJ. It's just, you just never saw him go out and just take it over and say, I'm the guy. I scream first pick, second pick in the draft. He never really had that game.
Mel, my understanding is it's a fairly deep wide receiver class. If the Patriots do go quarterback in the first round, can you see them getting an impact type receiver either in the second, third, or possibly even fourth round?
Yeah, I have 27 receivers with grades inside of the fourth round. And I have 6 to 7 going in the first, 6 to 7 in the second, another 6 to 7 in the third. I mentioned some of those names. I love Malachi Corley at Western Kentucky. He's great yards after the catch. He's kind of a Deebo Samuel type. You think about a big body receiver like Xavier Legette, who's kind of an A.J. Brown type at 220 pounds, had a great year for South Carolina. Ricky Pearsall, Ladd McConkey, guys like that. You talk about in the SEC at Florida and Georgia putting up good numbers, and Ricky Pearsall had that great combine, was a great player at Arizona State, then a great player at Florida. Troy Franklin at Oregon made the plays down the field for Bo Nix. He didn't have great combine. He ran well, but in the gauntlet, he struggled a bit. He had a couple drops at Oregon as well. Keon Coleman, I said, at Florida State, played like a 1, but I had NFL people say to me, Mel, if he's a 4.5 guy, he's a first. If he's a 4.6 guy, it's a second. He ran 4.61, but he did great in the gauntlet. So what do you do with Keon Coleman? So to answer your question, Karen, there's a lot of receivers that they can get second, third, fourth round. You got to pick the right one. All these guys aren't going to be stars, but they all have a lot of ability. But yeah, they can wait on a receiver and I think get a really good one.
If they went with their second round pick, which is obviously high up in the second round, who would you target there?
Keon Coleman from Florida State, if he were there. Xavier Legette from South Carolina, if he were there. I think you look at even Ricky Pearsall from Florida. Ladd McConkey would be in the discussion. But it depends what you're looking for. If you want the down the field vertical threat, you want the slot guy, you want a versatile slot guy outside threat. Somebody's going to slip through the cracks here. There's going to be a receiver that you think is a first that's going to go in the second. And I mentioned Legette because he's now being talked about as a first, but he could drop into the early second. And he's a kid who brings out a lot of that A.J. Brown type ability with him. A.J. Brown was a second round draft choice, remember. He was not a first round pick, coming out of Ole Miss. So receivers have been taken at bargain points. Devontae Adams wasn't a first round pick, coming out of Fresno State. He was a second round draft choice. So the second round has been Pittsburgh has George Pickens. George Pickens is a talented kid, right? Well, he was a second round pick. So again, the second round's been a round where a lot of NFL teams have done really well finding those receivers that for whatever reason slipped through the cracks, were underrated, but dropped into round 2.
Mark?
And say the Patriots do go quarterback 3, another option for the second round for them could be tackle. And I know you and other draft analysts have said this is a strong tackle class. So if they're sitting there at 34, do you think there'll be a starting caliber type left tackle, maybe that falls out of the first round?
Very well could be. Kingsley Suamataia from BYU is a talented kid, needs some technique work. He's a early second. Patrick Paul from Houston with incredible arm length, but he needs technique work. It's sloppy with his hands and his arms. So the bottom line is, yes, there are potential left tackles early in round 2 that could be intriguing to the right offensive line coach. So yeah, they could wait that out. Amarius Mims is more of a right tackle, but he's got a great skill set. Maybe some teams look at him as a left tackle. Didn't play a lot of football at Georgia with the injury this past year, but certainly has a lot of talent. But I would say the BYU kids, Sua Mata'ia, Patrick Paul from Houston, are both guys that will figure in the second round that are natural left tackles.
Chris?
I want to jump back to the Vikings for a second. If they wanted to move up to number 3, would the Trey Lance trade be kind of seen as the template to do that? Do you think they could get that done with just the 2 first-rounders they have now? Like, do you have any sense of what the perception around the league is of what it would take for them to jump from where they're at to number 3?
More than that. I think more than that. You're getting a quarterback. 11 and 23 is not enough. All you're doing, you're going 11, say just you're getting 23 up basically, and you're jumping from 11. So you're getting 1 extra. You need more than that. So if I'm giving up 3, I'm getting more than 11 and 23. So yes, it would take more than that for me. But I think in terms of Drake Maye and JJ McCarthy, it's going to have to be a case where you cannot believe that one of those 2 is going to be a really good starting quarterback. Because if you think one of those 2 can be, you got to take them. You don't worry about what you get in return. You can't give a quarterback. If you're giving away a quarterback in your New England, your team needs a quarterback desperately. The team moving up needs a quarterback desperately. Let's say Minnesota, but they have Sam Darnold for a year. You got Brissett, right? So you're in a similar situation. They're in the NFC. You're in the AFC, where you got to have a lot better quarterback in the AFC because it's a better quarterback conference. So for me, if you're New England, you got to be really strong on the fact that I don't like Drake Maye. I don't like JJ McCarthy. And let this other team go up and get the guy I don't like, because obviously if they're going up and giving up all that, they love that kid. So there's going to be a total difference of opinion. That's why I say it's the most fascinating draft in 46 years for me, because these teams picking a quarterback, some think Jayden should be 2, some think Drake should be 2, some think Drake's overrated, some think Jayden got pushed up from a 4th rounder last year to a number 2 pick. That's too much of a push up. JJ McCarthy, we talked about that. So again, these are Bo Nix. Auburn just was okay. Now he's at Oregon in a system that was quarterback friendly. He prospered. Michael Penix with the injuries goes from Indiana with all his injuries to Washington. Yeah. So again, all these guys, Caleb didn't play well from the Notre Dame game on. Is Caleb really generational? Right. So again, that's why they're quarterbacks. It's the most important position in any sport is quarterback in the NFL. That's why we're sitting here where we are. But for that pick, New England needs a quarterback desperately. The team trading up needs a quarterback desperately. I'm going to say, I don't like your quarterback. You love the quarterback you're getting. How does it all play out? Boy, I'll tell you, 3 to 5 years from now, it's either going to be franchise makers or franchise destroyers, because you're either going to hit big or you're going to miss. And New England, after the Mac Jones 15th pick overall, called a misfire. Bottom line is he got no help. And then New England better help their quarterback. They hung him out to dry, gave him no offensive line and no receivers. He had a good rookie year, led them to the playoffs, made play. They knew Mac wasn't that kind of guy. Mac's not physically, he's not Josh Allen. He's not going to create things that aren't there. He's not going to beat you with his legs. He's not going to beat you with physicality. He doesn't have the powerful arm. He doesn't have the great mobility. He's Mac Jones. You put any quarterback with that skill set, and a lot of them have had great careers in the NFL, behind that line with those receivers, they'd be in the same predicament Mac Jones is. I'm not saying Mac Jones is any great quarterback, but Mac Jones got a bad deal in New England.
In your mind, Mel, why has Drake Maye kind of slipped? He seemed to have a firm grasp of number 2, and now it's like, maybe 2, probably 3, and perhaps even lower. What has caused that dip?
Well, here's the thing, Karen. Some don't think he has fell. I think there's mixed opinion. I know there is because I've talked to people in the league. It just depends on, really, you don't talk to 32 teams. You only talk to your friends in the league. So you get mixed opinion there. You don't get everybody. So, everybody's talking to different people. So all that matters is right now, Chicago, then Washington, New England, and then any teams that want to trade up. And with the Giants do at 6. They're the only ones. These other teams that I'm talking to, people with different teams, they don't even care about quarterback, but they have an opinion on the quarterbacks. But that doesn't matter. It only matters what those teams at the top think. So for Drake, I think there is some mixed opinion. Some are still mocking him at 2 over Jayden. I'm putting him at 3. What I would say about Drake, the reason why there's mixed opinion, he had a good year in a really good year in 2022. He had Phil Longo was the coordinator, went to Wisconsin. So he lost his coordinator. Josh Downs was his top receiver, and Indianapolis had a really good rookie year. I think he had 94 catches. The next receiver didn't have many at all. So it was a big draw. Josh was his go-to guy. Josh Downs was. Lost Josh Downs. Thought Tez Walker was going to be the guy transferring in from the Mid-American Conference. NCAA said, no, you're not playing. Didn't play until, the 5th week. So, in October. So again, and a new coordinator as well. Now, on Drake Maye was the fact that he was missing open receivers. There's no excuse for some of the things you saw on tape. Time to throw. Can't blame the line. Receiver there. Throw accurate. Or a swing pass to a back. Off target. Just to catch the ball. Didn't hit him in stride. The long delivery. That needs to be tweaked a bit. It is a longer delivery than people prefer. Gives an NFL corners a chance to break on the ball. So, remember Aaron Rodgers changed his delivery once he went from Cal to the Green Bay Packers, but they had time to do that. Drake Maye, I think, needs, Drake Maye's still young. He's still a young quarterback, really young. So he needs some development, maybe to tweak a little bit from a delivery standpoint. And that will impact his accuracy a little bit, you hope. So there's some, I think he needs, is he a quarterback should play as a rookie? I don't think so. The rookie quarterbacks always do play. We see that every year. How many quarterbacks this year? You look at Will Levis, second-round pick. Will Levis was starting second half of the season. Anthony Richards was starting until he got hurt. Bryce Young, C.J. Stroud, they all start. This notion that you got to sit, watch, and learn is you got to adapt to the league. You can't go by the old days. This is not sit, watch, and learn for 3-4 years. It is with some, we saw it with Aaron. We saw Patrick Mahomes redshirt for a year. Who would have ever thought one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, who's still young, would have redshirted his first year? But they did. That's why I would have, if I'm the Bears, I'm keeping Justin Fields. But they didn't want to do that. They sent him to Pittsburgh, gave him to Pittsburgh. I would have kept him. But Patrick Mahomes didn't redshirt. I think Drake Maye needs to do that. I think he needs to sit for a year. It would be great if he went to a team, had a guy in place. But what happens usually is you think you got a guy in place. Remember when Josh Allen went to Buffalo? They had A.J. McCarron. They brought in. He's going to be the guy until Josh is raw. Josh isn't ready. Josh needs to work on his accuracy. Josh Allen became the guy immediately. And A.J. McCarron was gone. So, again, you can have the best laid plans, have this guy in place a couple games into the season. We're losing. Get the court. Troy Aikman, Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning was in his house. He was standing right where I'm sitting right here. And he said, no, they got to play. I don't give a daggone how many interceptions you throw. You learn by making mistakes. You learn by playing a daggone game. You don't learn by standing on the sidelines, listening to all the stuff and watching like the fans. You got to play the game. So the great quarterbacks of past years, and Peyton played not that long ago, Troy played not that long ago, they think you got to play. And that's the way. I saw John Elway as a rookie at Memorial Stadium in Baltimore after he should have been a Colt, but he ended up in Denver, right? And Baltimore Colts, they were loving it. He wasn't very good. I was at that game. It was terrible. Colts were winning the game with a bad Colt team. We're beating Denver. He got hurt. He got sacked by Vernon Maxwell. He hurt his ankle. And he couldn't finish the game. They brought in Steve DeBerg, a journeyman backup. Steve DeBerg led the Denver Broncos to a victory. They'd have never won that game with John Elway. John Elway's rookie year, Dan Marino was having the great rookie year, not John Elway. So if this would have been 2024, they'd been ripping there. Oh, this guy went the end of the first. You talk John Elway. Well, look how John Elway ended up. Great quarterback, 5 Super Bowls, 2 wins. Dan Marino went to 1 Super Bowl early in his career, was dominated, never went back. So again, Dan Marino had a great career. John Elway had a better career because he went to 5 Super Bowls, took an average team to 3 Super Bowls and lost, and took a team that was better to 2 Super Bowls, and he was MVP at the end of his career and won a Super Bowl. So he wasn't limping home. He was playing still really good football. So I think when you really look at it right now and you say quarterbacks in the NFL, where we are, can you sit for a year? Yeah, you can. It's not preferable by the guys I've talked to, but in Drake Maye's case, remember, Patrick came out of that air raid, came out of thrown all over the yard, the system. So they felt like they had Alex Smith. He took him to the playoffs that year, right? So again, with Drake Maye, where does he go? Will he be afforded that opportunity? I think he needs to sit for a year, but in the NFL right now, he probably won't be able to.
Mark, you have another one?
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about Jayden Daniels. How much concern is there with his frame, his weight, durability, especially if he was to go to a place like New England, where obviously it gets cold in the winter?
The weight issue with Jayden, he's added weight. He was really thin early on at Arizona State. I don't know what he was weighing, 180, 185. I don't know. They say he's 205 now. He looked bigger. He's never going to be, a Yeah, he's always going to be tall and angular, lanky, thin. That's just going to be his body. That's his body type. He knows he needed to add weight and strength to that frame, and he did. He survived. He took some big hits, and he survived. So, durability is not a concern with Jayden Daniels. And to me, he's got to learn to avoid a little more. They say that with Josh, but Josh is 6'5", 240 pounds. He can take those hits, right? Jayden cannot in the NFL withstand some of those Josh Allen hits, but he puts his body in harm's way a little too much. He's got to be a little smarter in terms of taking care of his body, getting out of bounds, sliding down. We all do. They all have to learn that. But Jayden, tough kid, made all the throws. He didn't have any bad games. He had a bad defense that he didn't have anybody stopping anybody on his defense, and he had to keep matching points and trying to get his team back late. He did have two great receivers to throw to. No question that Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas Jr. are talented kids. But Joe Burrow had Chase, right? Jefferson. He had great players at LSU too. Didn't hurt him. He's in the NFL doing great. So again, with Jayden, the dual threat, the comps, I hate comps because you're always comping first rounders to great. When have you ever comped the first rounder to an average player or a bust? You never do. The comps are always the great players. So he's comped to Lamar Jackson, and Herm Edwards, who coached Jayden and recruited Jayden, comps him to Randall Cunningham. So if you're going to be comped to Randall Cunningham, Lamar Jackson, expectations are through the roof. Jayden has that ability. He has that skill set. He's got a quicker release than Drake Maye. He's more accurate than Drake Maye. He's more of even though Drake's a good athlete, Jayden can beat you. Look what he did to Nick Saban's Alabama defense the last 2 years. He destroyed it. So to me, Jayden, I'm really not worried about that. Yes, he needs to protect his body, but at the end of the day, I think he'll learn to do that. I think, to me, it wouldn't be that big a concern.
Chris, you get another one?
I do. So for the last 20 some odd years, you've been trying to predict what Bill Belichick's going to do with the Patriots on the board. How has it been different this year with Elliott Wolf running the show? And just how has your job been different in this pre-draft process?
You know what, Chris? I don't have a clue going into these drafts what anybody's going to do. You think sometimes you get a little tip off here and there. Some people in the league say, I think they might go here, but nobody knows. And nobody with those teams is going to tell you anything. I've never asked a friend with a team, what are you guys going to do? Because I'm going to get the phone hung up on me if I do. So they're not telling you. They're not doing all this work to let it out. I did have some friends tell me, when I'll let you know who we're taking, but when you have to wait till we're on the clock. Do not, if you let this out, you'll never talk to me again. So I had some good friends over the years say, when we're on the clock, you can talk about what we may be doing. But until then, and you better not. Or I won't tell you what they exactly said, but it wasn't nice. Okay. So I won't go there. But, I think very rarely do you have any real strong idea what teams are going to do. And like I said, if I have a friend with a team, normally I'm not even asking them. I had some great friends over the years that would say to me, here's what we're doing. That's rare, but it has happened. I have had that happen with great friends that trusted me, would say that. Lifelong friends that trusted me would tell me that and knew that it wouldn't go any further. And when they were on the clock, I would discuss not just that player, but other players that could be in the mix, okay, and highlight. So again, you gotta. I wouldn't even want to be put in that spot. You know why? Because if they tell me even if a great friend, I hated that too. When a great friend tells you, and suppose that somebody's out there talking about that player or putting them in a mock. Mel, did you talk to that guy? I know you're friends with him. Did you let it out? I don't want to be put in that position because I don't want the friend in the league to think I did that when I really didn't, but he may think I did. So I'm better. Sometimes less is better. You evaluate the players. I created this mock draft industry. Blame it on me. I created it. I was doing 6-round mocks when nobody was doing it. When there were 6-7 rounds, I did a 6-round mock. I had mocks I had a mock back in the early years, in the late 70s, early 80s, a mock of what I thought the teams would do, and a mock of what I would do if I were the GM. If the picks went this way and I'm the GM of the next team, I'd do this. If I'm the GM of the next team, so I did a mock like that. I had all kind of mocks. They're a pain in the you-know-what. That's what they are, because they skew your ratings. You have ratings, and then you hear guys going, and you want to adjust your ratings to suit where they're going to go. You shouldn't worry about that. You got a guy 65th on a board and he's going 15th. Who cares? But you can't let that get into your mind. Ultimately, everybody does. We're all human, right? So mock drafts skew everything to the negative. Ratings are the most important thing. I've always believed that. you guys all have your ratings. You can all have your opinions. Everybody in the country has got ratings. Love it. Millions of people on the internet have ratings. Love it. Don't get tied up in mock drafts, because it's better to say, this is how I rate the players. I respect that more. How did you rate them? I think Drake Maye is the 70th best player in the draft. Hey, fine. I think he's the best player in the draft. I think Malik Neighbors is the best receiver in the draft. I think he's the third best. Everybody has their opinions. I respect that more than worrying about a mock draft. So again, that's why I think you always get back to, what did you see? Not what you're hearing. And if you would go by that, I think it's a lot more interesting. And then you can say at the end of the day, when this guy's not very good, oh, I had him as the 60th best player. He went in the first round. I was right. Or I had him as the 60th best player, and he turned out to be great. I was wrong. I'd rather go to that than worrying about where a guy was mocked. That's just me after 46 years. And I started this stuff with the mock drafts. So, and here I am bashing it, but it's kind of gotten out of hand, but it's fun. It's a great exercise. It's a fun exercise. I'd say a pain exercise sometimes to do, because now with free agency, you say, hey, why'd you have this guy going here? They just signed this guy, and now they have another option. It's all those things that play into it. But to your original question, I know no more about New England now than I did then, and I didn't know anything then when Bill was there. So at the end of the day, no, I don't think we know anything more now or anything less now than we did before.
Last one from me, Mel. The king of the mocks. When you're putting them together and you hit on the team at wherever they are in the first round, if you look at the Patriots and they have like 3 major needs: quarterback, game-changing wide receiver, left tackle. Do you rate that, or say, look, the quarterback has to win out? Or, as you said, by your ratings on the board, is it the best available at the position?
Karen, it's a great question. I've always said it's usually the best available player at a position of need. Most teams have 3, 4, or 5 need areas. Even after free agency, in terms of depth, they have still some need areas. So if you're usually taking the best available player at one of those areas, sometimes you have more pressing needs that you say, okay, if we got 3 guys bunched together, we got to hit that need. We got to take that guy. We don't have that luxury. So even though we have a guy rated higher, guys are close enough to fill needs. We got to take one. But if they're all in a grouping and you're afforded that opportunity, that's the best way to go. You do all this, you rate the players. I had a GM years ago tell me, Mel, we do this exercise. We spend all this time in these meeting rooms with all the scouts, getting all the brain trust together to put those guys up on that board and put a rating on them. And that means some guys are number 10, some guys are number 150. We do it for a reason. It's to protect us from overdrafting. And then what ultimately happens, I've heard stories of this, all the scouts will go home the night before the draft. They show up on the morning of the draft, and miraculously, guys jumped all around because somebody, the GM, wanted to say, I'm putting him here, so you can't say I got him, I didn't have him where I needed to have him to take him. So boards and ratings, I can tell you some crazy stories over the years, some things I've heard, but you do it for that reason. And you got to trust your ratings. And that helps you from moving up. If you say, okay, moving down. If I'm sitting there at 10, I can move to 18 because I got 4 or 5 guys that I think one of those 4 or 5 or 2 will still be there. But if I feel like I got to get this guy, he's in a position, I got to get help. I got an immediate hole filler. If we drop, I'm not getting anybody near. I'm looking at my board here. There's nobody near him, not even within proximity to say we feel comfortable. Then you just got to you can't go down. You got to make that pick. You go up if you see a guy dropping that you feel, hey, he's going to be great, but he's dropping. I can't wait any longer. In the case of a quarterback, you go up and get that guy. If you feel, even Buffalo, once Josh started to drop, I'll tell you about mock drafts. Morning of the draft, which year was it? Was Josh's year. Josh Allen was 2018. I come down to the draft. We have breakfast at the morning. So I get my mock, put it to bed the night before, right? It's up on ESPN.com, 7 a.m. draft day morning. I'm not doing any more final mocks, by the way. I'm going to have news and notes. Will not be anymore. I retired that last year because it kept me up till 4 a.m. and I was less hair now because of that. But at the end of the day, Josh Allen, I had number 1 to Cleveland. And a good friend of mine was at Cleveland at the time. But he was not telling me what they're doing. But Cleveland Browns had taken Josh Allen. Felt confident Josh Allen's the guy. I get down to breakfast. Josh Allen's not going to be. It's going to be Baker Mayfield. That's what they're all saying. I couldn't even. Are you kidding me? It's that sinking. That sinking feeling like I'm just putting up on ESPN.com Josh Allen to Cleveland, and they're taking Baker Mayfield.
Mm.
I'm thinking, okay, this ruined my day. I gotta wait till tonight to do the draft. I'm in a bad mood already. And then here we are. And then Buffalo moved up, and now but so you're kind of vindicated years later, but on draft day, you say you're sick at your stomach. So that's the mock draft. So I'll tell you another story. And I've said this time again, how close you are to being great or not good. The Kansas City Chiefs, when Patrick Mahomes was 2017, okay, 2017 year, when they drafted Patrick Mahomes. In 2016, I believe, the year before, was when Chris Jones was drafted. Kansas City tried to trade up to get Paxton Lynch. You guys remember Paxton Lynch?
Yes.
Quarterback out of Memphis, went to the Denver Broncos.
Yeah.
Denver traded to get Paxton Lynch. Kansas City tried to get Paxton Lynch, tried to get him. Evidence of that was after they didn't get him, they traded out of the first round entirely into the second. Who'd they take? Chris Jones, right? So they didn't get Paxton Lynch. So they moved down and took Chris Jones, like the 7th pick of the second round. Okay. The next year, they took Patrick Mahomes. Had they been successful in getting Paxton Lynch, who they tried to get, they wouldn't have had Chris Jones, and they wouldn't have had Patrick Mahomes. So where would we be? Where would the Chiefs be right now without Patrick Mahomes and Chris Jones? Where would they be? And with Paxton Lynch. Now, maybe Andy Reid would have made Paxton Lynch into a great player. Who knows, right? But where would they have been? So the trade that didn't happen, saved the Kansas City Chiefs organization. Is that not one for the books? So again, that's how the fine line between being great and being bad is in the NFL, or average is in the National Football League.
Love that. Anyone have anything else? Mel, thank you so much. It was great hearing your insights and getting your input. And like you said, who knows? We'll see what the Patriots do.
Yeah.
You know,
it's going to be fun. It's going to be really interesting seeing this division that the Patriots are in the AFC conference the Patriots are in. This decision is going to be monumental. I mean, and it's going to be that for a lot of organizations, and the Patriots are at or near the top of that list.
Great. Thank you, Mel. Have a good one.
Appreciate it. Have a great day.